how was the 9/11 Family Steering Committee created, and what was its role?
Well, there were a group of us that sort of, kind of got together and worked together when we were fighting for the commission. It was different family groups, the heads of different family groups that had already been created for other reasons. And a bunch of us, just started to go down to Washington and kind of continued the fight and really understood the continuity of what we were doing and who we needed to go speak to. And, it became this sort of dance where you understand that you have to go to this person to get to that person to understand what this committee is doing in that committee. Washington is a very interesting place. And so once we got the commission, up and running, the Family Steering Committee was that group of people that had done all this, sort of background legwork already and really knew what was going on. So we continued to do our jobs and then called ourselves the Family Steering Committee, as in steering the commission. We were supposed to, in our view, really, sort of watchdog the commission, make sure that the areas that we wanted to see investigated got investigated. We had high hopes that we'd have influence on, people that would be testifying and the questions that were being asked of the witnesses. And, it was disappointing.
Right.
The way things went, but that's how it turned out.
Well, in the beginning, the 9/11... Oh, by the way, with regards to the 9/11 Family Steering Committee, just so people know, there is a website out there right now that was the 9/11 Family Steering Committee. It's 9/11independentcommission.org. And
we chip in. The Family Steering Committee chips in to keep that running.
That's great. It's very important. There are so many things on there, and I've read as much as I could. So far as I know, I've read it all. But there's a list of unanswered questions. There are statements made by the 9/11 Family Steering Committee during the time of the 9/11 Commission, which to me are invaluable because it shows the problems that they were having all throughout the 9/11 Commission.
Yeah, it's a pretty accurate history because it was, done real time. So when you look back at it, you can really see the roadblocks and what issues we were faced with real time during the fight, for the commission and, during the commission.
Right, exactly. It's a wonderful resource of information. In fact, just briefly, the issue of government minders, the individuals who accompanied witnesses and intimidated witnesses and answered questions for witnesses and, gave witnesses the idea that their agencies might hold them, might retaliate against them if they said such and such, were a problem during the 9/11 Commission. And there was a document that was found, I think in 2009, from the 9/11 Commission that talked about the government minders. And I had no idea. I went through the statements of the 9/11 Family Steering Committee during the time of the 9/11 Commission, and on 3 separate occasions you guys addressed the government minders. You did not want them there. And that's just one of the many things that you learn.
Yeah, we were pretty outraged about that because we really felt that if you're going to have people come testify, they need to be able to tell what they know, and they need to not be intimidated to, not be able to do so. And
exactly.
They were intimidated, so we were outraged really at the time. We knew about it, and we were really besides ourselves trying to get that, to not be, but we were not successful.
Just unbelievable. In the beginning, the 9/11 Commission didn't hold people under oath, and you had to shame them into doing so. What kind of steps did you take to do that?
We begged, we pleaded, we explained why this was a terrible idea. They they had subpoena power, and they had the power to put people under oath, and we said what you're doing is going to make your work look, really insignificant if you don't swear people in. That's how that's supposed to happen. And the first,
right.
I don't remember how many hearings they did not swear people in, but a few hearings into the whole process, they began to swear people in, and I think even they saw, maybe they watched the tapes, and it just looked like a Mickey Mouse operation when they didn't swear anybody.
Right. Well, it's a shame. The idea of when you hold people under oath is the idea that if they lie, they're held accountable. And, even though everybody, eventually was started to be held under oath, nobody was held accountable. So it didn't mean anything anyway.
The bottom line is, I think, however, if you're a government person and you're sworn in, I think that it makes you be more truthful, even if you're not going to be held accountable, because you never know in the future what could happen. And so therefore, I suspect that it was, a little helpful to have people sworn in.
No, absolutely. It was very, it's a good thing to do.
It also got, it got us off their backs, so I suppose that was helpful too.
Right. In 2006, you and Mindy Kleinberg released a report showing how poorly the 9/11 Commission answered the family's questions. On the 9/11 Family Steering Committee's website, there are a list of questions the 9/11 Commission failed to address. How did the families decide on which questions would be submitted to the 9/11 Commission?
We all wrote questions, and we submitted them. We would just write them, and we'd pass them around. We had a very, rigorous editing process, which took forever. But we'd write questions, and we'd pass them around, and whoever was, next on the list to get the questions or whatever was being passed around would edit it and, clarify it to make the question clearer, to make sure that everybody, knew what the person meant. So if the question got, asked, it would be clear. So we all, it was a group effort. People would submit questions, and like I said, different people had different areas that they were more interested in, or, an area of expertise. So that was, kind of the questions you tended to ask anyway, and then you'd pass it around to the group, and everyone would see the questions, and we'd write the list, and we'd edit it, and we'd bring it with us to Washington, and we'd hand it to the commissioners, and we would sit there with bated breath hoping that they would ask the questions.
Right. How frustrating was it to see witnesses brought forward to testify and not see your questions being asked?
It was really very infuriating because a lot of times our questions were more in-depth than the questions the commissioners would ask. We researched everything, and we had better follow-up questions in a lot of cases, and it was very frustrating and very infuriating to not, get to the point, which is what we were, had gotten pretty adept at, because we really spent so much time, doing this. So it was upsetting to not see our questions asked.
When I would watch the 9/11 Commission hearings, and I couldn't watch them live, I watched them on their rebroadcast late at night on C-SPAN. It was infuriating to me to see it was like the friendliness, the camaraderie between the commissioners and the witnesses, the friendly banter back and forth.
It was a waste of time. That was our thing, was that it was a waste of time. There was a time limit on each commissioner, how long they had with each witness, and every time they spent 5 minutes saying how great the person was at, their hairdo, they were really taking away time from the point of, the entire investigation or the entire commission, and why we were all in Washington, not with our families. So every time they did that, we were really upset by it, and it wasted a lot of time.